Erica, before we get started today, are we going to tell the listeners our plans for the new year?
Oh my gosh. I think it would only be right as a Christmas present, but you have to wait till the end of the episode.
And for this episode, that's really easy because there's a sex scandal at the end.
Listen,
so wait for it.
Sex scandals, tons of incest, even
excommunications.
More excommunications, and a lot of kidnapping.
So stay tuned, and at the end, we will reveal to you our plans for the new year. You're listening to the Pithy Chronicle. History with a bite. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica. And we bring you history's dirtiest deeds, dripping with sarcasm.
Are you hungry yet?
Welcome back, listeners.
Welcome back.
I have, quite possibly, the most explosive episode that we've ever done.
Oh, I can't wait.
It is mic drop after mic drop after mic drop. And this is the tip of the iceberg, but the juice is worth the squeeze.
Oh, I need that phrase in my life.
Well, to get started, Caroline, I want to ask you to kind of orient us to how much you know, but also how much our listeners might know about the Holy Roman Empire in the 11th century.
I know that I can edit out anything that I say that's wrong. No, I'm kidding. I know that the Holy Roman Empire was this huge conglomeration of different peoples that were supposedly under this one ruler, but they had a lot of different religions and different cultures within this empire. And I know that there was this relationship between the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope because they had to be crowned by the Pope. And I know that Charles V was Holy Roman Emperor, and he was the nephew of Catherine of Aragon. And those are the things that I know.
That is the 16th century, but yes.
Okay, you know, you're getting picky.
I am, because this is a very specific time in history. It is tumultuous. England is not ruled by the Normans yet. The Roman conquest happens now in this area.
Yeah.
We have had the first Great Schism where we have our Roman Catholic and our Eastern Orthodox. Those have been established, but it's all going on at this point.
Okay, that was a good synopsis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We do need to know a little bit more about it, and you touched on this, that it was varying lands in Western and Central Europe, ruled over first by the Frankish kings, and then by German kings for about 10 centuries. So 800 to 1806.
That's a big, long-lasting empire.
A millennium,
yeah.
Literally. And change.
Very few pennies at the end.
So we are zeroing in this week on the relationship between the HRE, the Holy Roman Empire, and more specifically this Holy Roman Emperor, and the Holy See, the Pope, God's vicar on earth.
Awesome.
The idea was that if the Pope cared for and nurtured the spiritual and liturgical, the HRE governed the secular. And I mean that very underlined, bold, very italicized loosely.
I'm sure that a lot of them like to veer into other lanes.
Oh yes, so loosely that even the people we are discussing today cannot get it right.
Just can't stay in their
lane.
lane.
They cannot. So let me take you all the way back to 1075.
I'm ready.
When a man named Hildebrand was elected pope. He was a very famous figure whose ugliness, like physical ugliness, was unmatched in the whole of Europe in the 11th century.
I'm sorry. What could possibly make a man unmatched in ugliness?
That's, quote, what the sources say, but they don't expand. They
That's
don't say
not
if he's
reasonable. You have to talk about the...
Right. Does he have
pock
warts?
marks?
Does he have a physical deformity?
Some sort of like a mole with hair, curly hair growing out of it?
Yeah. Does he have spindly, creepy fingers? I don't know.
Weird teeth.
Everyone probably has weird teeth at that point, right?
That's true, but Hildebrand evidently takes it to a new level.
Still, he was a great speaker and apparently could read minds.
Okay, so he can read minds and he's ugly as sin. Do we know anything else?
Yes, but nothing that is really concrete, especially for his origins. But there is a lot of information about him in his later life and time as Pope, obviously.
But pre-Pope, we're missing.
And a lot of it is stuff like supposedly this and maybe that, and he could have been a blacksmith's son.
Got it.
But nothing terribly interesting or that pertains to the story, and I'm trying to keep it concise as possible. Pithy, yeah, I gotta keep it pithy.
Yeah.
What is interesting, though, is there is no evidence for him to have noble blood. He's not your typical man of the cloth. He was one of the OG come up by your bootstraps or clerical robes kind of guy.
Yeah, I think that the church oscillated about whether or not they wanted the name and the money, or they wanted the sincere and the holy.
Right.
It's an interesting thing.
But here's the thing, though. He ran away and hid when he was acclaimed pope because guess what?
He was afraid?
No, the conclave had not been established.
Oh.
There was
so they didn't have the official system.
There was an election process, but people in clergy were calling for him in the street to become pope.
Oh.
And the issue there is he felt like being acclaimed pope was not a really legitimate way to become pope. He wanted to be
elected
with the process.
Okay.
Yeah, because he really did drink the Kool-Aid. He believed in the supreme authority of the church. And once he was elected, because he was eventually elected, once they found him and had this dramatic, probably apocryphal story about dragging him from the stables.
You will lead this church.
I told you!
Let go of that horse.
Part of me thinks this is him trying to say, I'm not good enough for this.
That's very common. That humble, overly,
this feigned humility. But whatever.
Yeah.
Once he was elected, he started doing what he felt was in his job description. Firing bishops who were put in place by the last Holy Roman Emperor, which obviously didn't sit well with the current King of the Germans, who typically would, once consecrated by the Pope, would become the HRE.
Oh.
And that's our friend today, Henry IV.
So then he wasn't the Holy Roman Emperor?
No. So I will go ahead and say that there is someone who understands this process much better than I.
Fair.
But this is what I have gleaned. The Pope had to invest the Holy Roman Emperor.
Yep.
And he had not done that for Henry IV yet.
Okay, so this guy was waiting in the wings, and then they got a new pope, and they were like, okay, we'll let you get settled in, Hildebrand, and then it's time. And then he was like, oh, but it's not automatic. I have to think about this.
Right. And it is clear he was already acting as though he were the Holy Roman Emperor.
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yes, he started to appoint more bishops without Gregory/Hildebrand's consent, which he believed was his prerogative to do.
That is stepping into the religious realm from my understanding of our lanes.
Right. And in no surprise turn of events, this became a very, very high-stakes pissing match.
Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, will history not stop repeating itself?
No.
No.
No, it won't. It is cyclical.
Forever.
Before we go any further, let's chat a little bit about our Holy Roman Emperor in the wings, Henry IV. Caroline, I'm going to tell you about Henry's childhood, and just to be clear, you're probably going to have a visceral reaction.
Oh.
But, let's manage expectations here. He was born to Henry III and Agnes of Poitou. After his father's death on October 5th, 1056, Henry was placed under his mother's guardianship, and she made grants to German aristocrats to secure their support.
She's feeling vulnerable. Her husband has died. She's trying to make sure that she keeps it in place for her son.
Exactly. It's not clear to me whether she was sojourner in reigning, like a regnant, or if she was iuria-xorus, so reigning in the name of her son.
Oh, yeah.
Like a regent.
Yeah.
That was not clear to me. Again, I'm sure someone knows better. Unlike her late husband, she could not control the election of popes, and thus the idea of liberty of the church really strengthened during her time as Queen of the Germans and Holy Roman Empress.
Because the church didn't respect women.
Of course not. And taking advantage of her, quote, weakness and womanliness, Archbishop Anno II of Cologne kidnapped Henry IV in 1062. And he administered Germany until Henry came of age in 1065. So for 3 years, the archbishop was like, I've got the heir, and I'm going to be in charge of this.
To control the mom.
Right.
Well, that is definitely not Christian in theory.
Or in practice, quite frankly.
Or in practice. Yeah, kidnapping a child, even though he's probably, 15 at this point?
Yeah.
That's wrong, Archbishop Anno II of Cologne.
Agreed.
And we, the Pithy Chroniclers, or at least this one, deems you unlawful, unholy in your actions.
Of course, they're wrong.
Bad,
But they're also
Leroy
not
Brown.
thinking about the long game. It doesn't take more than an armchair expert to see that this is not going to play to the church's benefit.
No, this was a very short-sighted plan.
Yeah, because why would a kid be happy about being taken prisoner, forced to live away from his mom, his home, his country, culture, all of that, and then see her/his power diminished and undermined? Like, come on, guys, use your brains.
Was he well treated in this prison situation?
I really don't know.
So this was definitely not like a trade done by governments and popes to make everybody understand where the power was.
It was forcibly taken, right?
All right, well, short-sighted Archbishop Anno II, and I feel that you will get some comeuppance.
Actually, we don't see him again. I'm telling you, I tried to keep this quick and dirty.
Never mind, in my head, you're getting comeuppance.
That's right. Because he probably didn't get comeuppance, if we're being honest.
I don't know. If he survived to Henry actually getting power, probably not.
Yeah.
Unless it was a Vlad the Impaler situation and they became best buds.
No, I will say probably not that.
Probably not then.
So we're picking back up.
10 years later.
Yeah. When Henry realized the bishops that he had appointed were being fired, because as soon as one could appoint, the other would fire. Appoint, fire, appoint, fire. He assembled a church council consisting of the bishops in Germany and northern Italy. Then they voted against Gregory VII, Hildebrand, calling him unfit to be the pope.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Especially for his feigned humility.
Well, it gets worse, right? He's not nice about it.
Oh.
He's got to get dirty. Henry IV wrote a letter to Gregory and told him that he was fired. He did not address Gregory by his papal name and regarded him as Hildebrand, a false monk.
Whoa.
And Hildebrand's response was almost equal, and I'll let you have a guess at what he did first.
Excommunication, obviously.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It is the Pope's trump card.
Gregory VII wrote back a letter in the same year, 1076, and declared the excommunication of Henry IV. And then he informed all the subjects of Henry IV that they no longer owed him any loyalty and could elect someone else as their ruler.
You know, pissing match was such a good phrase for this, because in the end, no one can win this. And these poor citizens are like, what do we do? Damned in life? Damned in death? What are our choices? It's the human cost.
And this excommunication was a huge deal because it was the first of its kind.
Oh, because I said it right away. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously you would excommunicate, but this is the first one. That's a bombshell.
Yeah, the first of its kind in 6 centuries. So it hadn't been done in half a millennia.
That's a lot.
So it implied, of course, the higher authority of the papacy compared to the state, and things got serious when some people, including some authorities, acted as Gregory had said and decided to elect a new leader. And obviously that meant there was going to be a rebellion on the way.
Okay, so basically, before we continue, they both feel that they have the power to appoint bishops and other church officials, and then they get very offended, deeply offended, when the other one does it as well, or instead of. And now they're both pissed off at each other, and instead of just talking it over like adults, they're being passive-aggressive tweens.
100%. Beautifully summed up. So here's what happened next.
I'm on the edge of my church bench.
Your church pew?
Of my pew.
So fearing the rebellion of his vassals, already seeing that kind of rebellion start to ferment, Henry sought the Pope's mercy.
Oh.
That's the only thing to do right now.
Okay.
And during the harsh winter of 1077, Henry and his servants made a long and dangerous journey through the snowy mountains of northern Italy to meet the Pope. And they met in a small town called Canossa, in the mountains of northern Italy. Think like very scenic Alps, but like you don't have ski pants.
Oh, they'd have those cotton leggings.
Or wool.
Wool leggings. Itchy.
Yeah.
But why would you choose to meet in a small town in the Alps in the middle of winter in the 11th century?
Okay, these are great questions.
Why are these men so stupid?
Well, so
a woman would have been like, let's wait till summer.
you know what?
Or better yet, let's go somewhere tropical.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that.
Oh.
Just listen to the rest of the story unfold, and I think that you will get some more of these answers. So when Henry arrived, the Pope made the humiliated Henry wait in the bitter cold for 3 days before finally agreeing to see him.
Uh-huh.
Contemporary accounts report that when Henry was finally permitted to enter the gates of Canossa, he walked barefoot through the snow and knelt at the feet of the Pope to beg forgiveness. As a result, the Pope revoked Henry's excommunication. It was unprecedented and definitely the hottest topic at the dinner table. And I don't want to discount that at all.
He has made it clear that is a visual as well as a literal, I am below you. He's made that super clear. And I find that slightly odd for a man who 6 months ago was like, F you, Pope, I'm gonna do what I want. It sounds like things got overblown, and as we said, he had like a teenage reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I say overreaction, and he had to kind of pull it back.
Right. Some historians, who I think are probably right,
Mm-hmm.
see this as a very... He has to eat his humble pie.
A lot of it.
And he has to do this
On ice.
to bide time.
To buy time.
Yeah, revenge is best served cold.
It did seem too easy.
It was very much this idea that if Henry does that, then the Pope then will have no other course of action than to forgive him and to reverse the excommunication. He can't come plaintive and penitent, walking through snow for
barefoot
3 freaking days, and then the Pope be like,
still not good enough.
Nah, you know?
Okay, so he's bought himself some time.
And there was a very important but hidden power player at work, and to everyone's surprise, but not this chronicler's, it was a woman.
Women organizing behind the scenes. God, where have we heard about that before? It rings a bell.
It does. Matilda, la Grande Contessa, Matilda the Great of Canossa, Countess of Tuscany.
Well, gosh golly, that's a title.
I know, right?
Matildas are having a moment in this 11th century.
They are.
We've been looking ahead for our new seasons, and we're going to do at least 2 Matildas in the 11th and 12th centuries.
At least 2 Matildas, and after this...
It's a lot of Matildas.
After you hear her story, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, you are going to be asking for more, because it is incesty.
Probably wrong to make that
I know.
slightly choir-like angelic sound to go with incest. But bring it on. I want to talk about Matilda, la Grande Countess.
I mean, I know you love it.
La, let's go.
She and her mother were taken prisoner by Holy Roman Emperor Henry III, so Henry IV's dad.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And it was because when Matilda's mother, Beatrice, married Godfrey, Duke of Upper Lorraine, Henry's nemesis, there was no way for him to influence both Tuscany and then Upper Lorraine. So he was pretty pissed about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't consolidate power like that and expect...
And not talk to the Holy Roman Emperor about it first.
Exactly.
Is this like you have to get the king's permission to marry and they didn't and then they're in trouble?
I don't know if that was actually a law, but I'm sure it wasn't.
It was an unwritten rule.
Sure.
And they broke it and then they got kidnapped. It seems fair.
So around a year and some change later, the men reconciled in whatever way they reconciled, and the women were allowed to return home. And that was a few months before Henry's death.
Oh.
So when Godfrey, Matilda's stepfather, died a decade or so later, 1069, when Henry IV is doing his own captivity.
It's a lot of captives in the story.
A lot of captives.
It's so captivating.
Matilda married his son, Godfrey, the hunchback, her stepbrother.
Ew. We've heard of worse relatively recently in this podcast, but still, growing up for 10 plus years in the same household and then getting married in a society that does not believe in incestuous relationships is icky. You saw that kid go through puberty. It was awkward. Walk away.
No thanks. She resided with him in Lorraine seemingly happily-ish until the death of their child in infancy, and she returned to Italy and reigned with her mother Beatrice until Beatrice's death in 1076.
What happened to the husband? She just left him there?
Yeah, she was just like, deuces, I'm gone.
Okay.
So Matilda, because of her own lands and the lands controlled that she was still influencing by her husband, was incredibly rich and powerful and became close with our false monk Gregory VII.
Oh.
And she had never gotten over her captivity and her family's enmity with the Holy Roman Empire, and so she gave power, loyalty, and money to the papacy to fight against Henry IV.
Okay.
And she hated his guts.
Well, his dad had captured her and her mother.
Exactly. And when you can't take your revenge out on the actual perpetrator, his son will do just fine.
Best served cold. Yep, she bided her time. Okay.
And so this is all coming to a head after Henry's second excommunication.
Wait, when did he get excommunicated the second time?
In 1080.
What did he do?
Yeah, Henry's defiance of Gregory earned him a second excommunication after Gregory was entangled in Henry's war against the Saxons. Now remember, it was just 3 years ago in 1077 that he had to
groveling on bended knee in the cold
to Matilda's castle at Canossa.
Ooh! That's why we chose the Alps in the middle of winter. Well, at least that was clarified, so actually, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I feel that Gregory has misunderstood that once you excommunicate and forgive, the second excommunication just feels less effective.
Doesn't hit as hard.
It doesn't. You're like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to go back to the snow.
So,
ski break!
The synod that Henry then got together deposed Gregory and elected in his stead the anti-pope Clement III in 1084. And that is when he, quote, officially became Holy Roman Emperor because Clement, the anti-pope, crowned him.
Okay, so he's been biding his time. Gregory just hasn't gotten around to crowning me.
Yeah, it's a personal thing. He doesn't really like me.
But now he's like, screw this. I'm just going to make my own old guy pope.
Right.
And take care of this. Okay, I see what's happened.
Yes. And his Roman allies abandoned Gregory after Clement's election.
Ooh.
The Pope's Norman allies, particularly Robert Guiscard, had to evacuate him from Rome, and he had to flee to Viterbo.
Okay. All right.
So Matilda was intermittently at war with Henry until his death in 1106, sometimes even donning armor to lead her troops in person.
Like it.
And that's from the Britannica, so it's gotta be true.
So she really put on that armor that was handmade.
But
for her.
before all of that, in 1089, at the age of 43, Matilda married a 17-year-old Welf V, Duke of Bavaria, and Carinthia.
Sorry, Welf?
Welf.
We gotta bring that name back.
No, we don't. But he was a member of the very powerful and very infamous Este family.
Ah.
They separated 6 years later, Henry IV, of course, sticking his nose in it and taking the Este side, resulting in just more quarreling.
Okay.
Because of this, Matilda encouraged Henry's son, Conrad, to rebel against his father in 1093 and seize the crown of Italy.
Why does Henry IV have the crown of Italy? Is that part of his...
Because he's the HRE.
But he's not the... Well, now he is. Well, is he?
He is.
Is he? Is he not?
That's the thing. Is he not?
And I'm gonna guess that Conrad was like, done. I'm tired of waiting for Dad to die.
Well, that is interesting. He definitely is primed for rebellion.
Okay.
But for a reason you might not understand. Or might... No, you definitely don't know it.
Oh. But I clearly don't, because it's got to be juicy.
It's juicy. It's so juicy that I don't know that anyone in the Holy Roman Empire that ever has been or ever shall be from this point on could have conjured such an audacious, shocking revelation.
Oh, I was thinking 43-year-old Matilda and 17-year-old Welf was pretty audacious. I mean, she was a cougar.
I don't know. I think Matilda was just down to consolidate power. I don't think she cared about any of her husbands. I think she was like, I know what I want to do.
Okay, I want to know what happens.
So enter Eupraxia of Kiev.
Great name.
She was born around 1070 as the daughter of Vsevolod I, Prince of Kiev, and his wife Anna. The Annales de Saxo from 1082 mentions her marrying Henry III, the Long of Stade, Margrave of the Saxon Nordmark.
Margrave, what is that?
Margrave is a
like
title.
Marquis?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, cool.
That source also mentioned that she's known, quote, in our language as Adelheid, and she arrived in this country with much pomp, with camels burdened with precious clothes and stones, and also with countless riches. Her first husband died, not long after their wedding, and Eupraxia, now a childless widow, was turned away from Stade.
Well, that's just...
We're done. We don't need you.
That's not cool. You can't treat a widow that way.
A childless
Especially the
widow.
daughter of a prince? Surprised they were so bold.
Especially because she is allegedly beautiful.
Helen of Troy.
Kind of. She was not only a princess of the Kievan Rus, but also of the Kuman warlording tribes. If you want to know more about them, we're about to be featured on Book Talk for Book Talk, and we talk a little bit about the Kumans in that episode.
That's coming right up. I'm really excited for that to air.
It is. I'm so excited for it to air. But anyway, so they turned her away despite her beauty, and she was still pretty young, but she was like, you know what? I've done this wife thing. I'm over it. I want to go to a convent to live my life in service to God.
Why is it always the beautiful one?
But lo and behold, this lady just can't win.
No, she's had bad luck so far.
Oh, she's got worse luck to come. She meets recently widowed Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV, and he hounds her to marry him.
Because she's just so beautiful? Because he wants her land? Yes and yes?
Yes and yes. For him to marry her, he gets a nice alliance with the Kievan Rus, which are pretty good right now. I don't know that they've totally unified the Rus lands yet. Ivan the Great hasn't come.
But it's still a lot of territory.
But it's still a lot of territory, and neither of them really like Poland.
Okay.
And so having Germany plus the Kievan Rus,
you've surrounded Poland.
Exactly. So Poland becomes less of an issue.
Okay.
And so she does marry him. And she's recorded by the Chronicle Echehard as marrying Henry IV, the Emperor, celebrated in Cologne his wedding, taking to wife the widow of Margrave Udo, or Henry III, the daughter of the King of Rus.
Wow, her dad is now king of the Rus
Right.
lands.
Yeah, and things turn very bad, very quickly. It's recorded in 1094, so she's only 24 at this point, in the Annales de Saxo that they have separated.
There's a lot of separation happening here for a religion that was anti-divorce.
You would think, right? Because she is this beautiful woman, Henry IV is like, no one
can have her.
He gets very possessive in a weird way. He locks her away in the castle. He travels with her all the time, constant companion, but she is very much a prisoner in a gilded cage.
Okay, so he takes his own captivity and puts it on this poor girl.
Right.
Because she is so beautiful, because she is so prized as a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he allow them to separate?
That's the thing. She ran away.
Oops.
Bernald of St. Blasian notes that Eupraxia escaped from the guards that her husband had set on her, and she finds safety with none other than Duke Welf and Countess Matilda of Tuscany.
Matilda could probably not have been more excited.
It was like the golden goose got delivered.
She's like, give me all the dirt on your asshole husband.
Whom I hate,
but now I can bring him to heel with some blackmail or some...
anything, right?
Lots of options.
Let me tell you, that was in 1094, and what she said was so explosive that the Pope called the Council of Piacenza in 1095.
Okay.
Yeah.
An entire council to talk about whatever whatever was happening in this woman's marriage?
There were several things, but this was one of the headliners.
Okay, then.
So, Gregory died at some point. His story ending was not that important, and now we have Pope Urban II. The council was held at the end of Pope Urban II's tour of Italy and France, which he made to reassert his authority after the big investiture controversy with Henry IV, Holy Roman Emperor.
And Clement.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are still anti-popes, but Urban is like Pope official.
Sure. 200
bishops attended, as well as 4,000 other church officials and 30,000 laymen.
30,000 why were laymen even involved in this? Are these governors,
no
or are these just like interested dudes?
I'm sure they're folks that are interested. I'm sure they are lay church officials.
Scholars, probably.
Yeah. Ambassadors, things like that.
Tabloids,
the
obviously. Press. I can see that.
At the Pope's early council, because there were two that makes up the full council, both of the Frankish kings, so that's Henry IV and then Philip the Amorous, were accused of serious moral crimes.
I'm sorry, Philip the Amorous is a great name.
Well, it is a great name until you hear what he did to his wife.
Oh.
So he was just really, 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 really terrible.
Was he dirty or something?
He was calling his wife too fat for horses, and
he was just
that
mean.
She was ugly, and he was just mean. Because he wanted to marry his vassal's wife, Bertrade. Now, at this point, she's married to Fulk of Anjou, who would become the patriarch of the Plantagenet line.
So she had a powerful husband anyway.
Right. And Philip basically kidnapped Fulk of Anjou's wife, and Fulk was not... He didn't really care. He was like, go, whatever. He had already gotten his heir and a spare, and if he didn't have a wife, he could just have whoever he wanted.
He could also marry again and get more power, more land.
Exactly. So that's Philip.
Okay.
We are coming right now to the big reveal. At this point, the thrice excommunicated Henry.
Wait, where did the third one come from?
I don't know. It's not important to the story.
Okay. Again,
so
the Pope just keeps losing his oomph with every...
Maybe Pope Urban was like, hey, you and Greg didn't get along. Like,
we can fix this.
Bygones, but maybe. I don't know.
Silly, yeah.
So here is the tea. Eupraxia flees captivity and goes to Matilda of Tuscany and Welf.
Right.
And we know now that that's his nemesis and the Pope's most loyal ally. And now she has her story to tell. She confesses that she was forced to participate in orgies, was raped by her husband, and was forced into non-consensual, deviant, and unnatural sexual acts with him, and that on one or more occasions she had been offered sexually to his own son, Conrad, who thankfully was like, no, I really don't want to bang my stepmom. And even more dramatically, Saint Bernard of Blasian records Eupraxia's own account, saying, Queen Eupraxia, who had long been separated from Henry, complained to the Lord Pope and to the Holy Synod about her husband and the unheard of, filthy acts of fornication that she had suffered from her husband. The Lord Pope, together with the Holy Synod, received her complaint most mercifully because he was quite certain that she herself had not committed such foul offenses, but had endured them unwillingly.
Wow. Okay, so she's clearly claiming that Henry IV is a deranged psychopath who is raping and handing off his wife. That's a lot. I mean, usually I know that men of power, especially at this time, just did not understand the word limit. But they didn't usually do it to their wife, especially if their dad was the king of Rus. Maybe just find a mistress who's into that stuff.
So it gets weirder.
What? Okay.
She is allegedly pregnant. Chronicles can't really get the story straight here, and there's no sure way to determine paternity of this alleged child since she had participated in so many orgies.
Participated is a strong word, since she had been forced
into these orgies.
Yeah.
And in the sources that mention this, she loses the baby either late term or it dies in infancy. There's a lot of evidence that she had a child that died in infancy or late term. But the whole orgy, who's the dad, that sort of stuff is kind of what it's just not clear, you know?
And I'm interested that Henry didn't have any care about that.
Well, he already had his heir and a spare.
Whatever her children, they weren't going to be taking over his... Okay.
Not...
Because usually men are... Like, that's the whole point of this virginity issue.
Right. And one chronicler did allege that if she had not been this beautiful princess, this woman with status, he would have just had her and left her.
Yeah, but he had to marry her.
Right.
Okay.
So Pope Urban II comes out at the council and just spills all this.
Adding sugar and honey and cream as he goes.
All of it.
Right.
And branded Henry a Nicolaitans heretic who had performed black masses on Eupraxia's naked body at orgies and is not a Christian, should never be emperor, and something must be done about it.
Whoa. He performed black masses on her naked body?
So,
during orgies?
During orgies.
Whoa.
So here is the deal. Nicolaitans are a New Testament cult who participated in sexual orgies, did participate in black masses, were very much heretics of the time. And what's interesting is that there's really not any evidence that there was a Nicolaitan cult in the 11th century, but basically by likening him to the Nicolaitans, he's saying that this is a new heresy that's come back.
Yeah.
We know what this is.
So he's giving them a comparison to make
Right.
with how evil Henry IV
Yes.
really is. And to be fair, if this is true, that's bad.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Obviously, Eupraxia's letters, none of those survive. So we don't know that she actually said a black mass was performed on her body. All we have are what came out at the council.
This poor woman had her sex life, and a forced sex life. I really shouldn't call. She had her trauma
Right.
shared with every 30,000 laymen.
Exactly.
Aw.
Not to mention that even now, most of the historical sources still say, yeah, this was probably political. He probably didn't do any of that to her.
What?
And here's the thing. Do I think that it was politically convenient for this story to come out? Yes. I do think it was. And I think that Matilda and the Pope, they took advantage of what was happening to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she also understood that she could get out of this marriage. She could not have to be there anymore if she told what was happening to her.
I mean, that's a big choice. It makes me think of the modern parallel with the Me Too movement and women coming forward to tell their stories of sexual assault and abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very scary thing to present your truth to the world and hope that people believe you, and have more than 30,000 laymen have the entire internet with their own opinions. So this is
It's a modern story.
It's a modern story.
That just happens to take place in the 11th century.
And all this kidnapping.
I know, it's like Taken.
Yes, exactly.
But here's the other thing. It's over a millennium later. We're still talking about this woman's story, and experts are still saying she probably just fudged it.
Yeah, even 1,000 years later, women aren't being taken seriously for their testimony or their truth.
Their accusations. And here's the thing. Not on the Pithy Chronicle.
No.
Not on the Pithy Chronicle. Not
We're
here
giving
today.
the soapbox. We do just love to do that.
I do, but it's just not freaking fair. You know,
It's
this
not.
woman endured a lot. And whether not...
I mean, she was at least kidnapped.
Minimum, she entered into a marriage she did not want.
Yes. And if you have to run away because your husband doesn't let you leave his sight,
there's abuse
there's something
going on.
wrong. And my guess is there's a reason he didn't want her to leave, because he didn't want her to tell people
Exactly.
things.
Now, just to wrap this up, Conrad, the son, Henry's son, corroborated her story at this council.
Okay, stop. Why are historians questioning this?
Well, because Conrad, in their mind, still had more to gain.
Yeah.
He wanted to become HRE.
That's true, and if we can convince him that Dad is evil, we can just... And then, of course, in her story, it is quite convenient that Conrad said no.
Right.
But also, who wouldn't say no to that ick factor?
That's a very high ick factor.
So Conrad comes and he's like, this woman is telling the truth, which, in a modern day court of law probably still wouldn't get you very far. But it seems like the laymen and the churchmen believe this.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they do about it, Erica? What do they do?
They crusade!
I don't recall mentioning the Muslims or Israel in this story. What does the crusade have to do with poor Euproxia?
Pope Urban wants to seem like he has his life together and that he's taking due consideration to hear all of these things. Like, what are we gonna do with the French king who calls his wife fat and kidnaps somebody? What are we gonna do with the heretic Holy Roman Empire who has, so mistreated his wife? What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
So 6 months, he's gonna wait.
He says, I'm just going to take 6 months to think about this?
All of the things, and we'll reconvene in a few months.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And see what to do about all these evil rulers that are...
plaguing the land, right.
Misogynistic rulers, basically.
Right.
Okay.
So, the hottest emperor on the field, Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos, sent his messengers to say that he wanted to win back the land lost to the Seljuk Turks for the betterment of Christendom, and he needed the Pope's help to do it.
Okay, I mean, I have judgment on the Crusades. Let's start there. They were pretty unfounded in every way, shape, and form.
100%.
100%. But why does that affect what we do to these rulers with their sex scandals? Like, can you not handle both things?
So,
to be fair, I'm not sure they could handle the Crusade, but I feel that they could do something about the other.
So the Pope really no longer needed to deal with Henry. The damage was done to his reputation. His son was in full revolt and was fully the king of Italy and the Romans, which King of the Romans is usually a precursor to the King of Germany, precursor to HRE. He had overwhelming support of the empire, and folks were not fast to recognize the anti-pope anymore. They saw it for the farce that it was. Oh, and he offered to immediately forgive all the sins, large or small, of anyone who joined the crusade. So
yeah, that does. That is the kicker.
Yes.
That is a very big incentive, especially at this time when religion was, with the exception of, I guess, the black masses done by Henry IV, religion was such an integral part of these people's lives.
Right.
And there was very little questioning of what would happen next. The question was just, which place would you go? Forgiving all of your sins, that's a big one.
And, because Alexios wanted the Normans, who, remember, are loyal to the papacy, who were ruled at this point by Billy the Conk. He was a little bit busy in England, so Robert Curthose, the second Duke of Normandy and huge supporter of the Pope, mortgaged his entire duchy to go on crusade.
That's dumb.
It is dumb.
That's dumb. You were born into privilege and land, and you're gonna squander it on some sort of a Hail Mary, get out of jail free pass? Come on.
Yeah. It's
another pissing match. It's these men wanting to go to war to prove themselves, and then I think the wealthy, the duchies, were like, yeah, gung-ho, let's do this, and then they just made all of the people that worked for them come with.
But they secured their place in eternity.
Well, at least in history. I'm not sure about eternity.
Another thing interesting to note, you remember our dear friend Folk, who was happy to let his wife go?
Right.
Because he already had the heir and the spare?
Right.
His son, Folk, ended up becoming king of Jerusalem, so he got a pretty...
Okay, he got something good out of the Crusades.
Yep.
Stolen crown there.
That's basically it.
What happened to Euproxia?
Well, Euproxia returned home to the Ruslands in 1097. She did not get a divorce.
What?
Yeah, she had to wait until 1106 when Henry died to enter into a nunnery.
Probably the nunnery said, no, you're married. And she was like, I don't want to be.
Exactly.
The Pope had a council about me, and they were like, no, you're married. I can't believe that the papacy couldn't at least make some little, dot the I's, cross the T's. You're officially released from this monster.
No, they literally did not care.
Did not care.
She died in 1109 and was buried in the Kievan Caves Monastery, and she fades from the pages of history, only to remain in a few sentences.
And probably, as I will say, as salacious pages. She's not in there because of anything she did. She's not in there because of her piety. She's in there because she was used as a sex slave by Henry IV.
It's a Debbie Downer.
It is.
And that, my friends, is that.
We have finished the episode. We have signed off. We have told the people what they needed to know about Eupraxia. Can we now tell our big news?
Yeah.
We are coming out with season 3 of the Pithy Chronicle, entitled
Women at War.
Does that mean they have to be in a physical fight?
No, because that was not the traditional role of women. Now, we are definitely going to see women fight, women enlist. We're also going to see how ruling women are able to wield power and how that in itself is a war.
They might be women that are fighting for a cause to make a difference in their world and to protect themselves and those they love. We had this suggested to us by a listener.
And before we get started, we would love to have you tell us on our Instagram, who do you want to hear about? I know Eleanor of Aquitaine is on my list.
The Matildas.
Oh my gosh, so many Matildas. I've had people suggest Mata Hari, Julia Child, people from all eras.
Who do you think of when we say a woman at war? She could be Eleanor Roosevelt. She could be Amelia Earhart.
Queen Elizabeth.
The second and the first.
And the first.
There's so much potential with this series, and we're really excited to get going. It will premiere on February 14th, 2023, the 1-year anniversary of the Pithy Chronicle.
Woohoo! We are presenting our new season with a fabulous new lens on women's role in war.
What are we going to do for the people until February 14th?
We are going to work on something called an intertempera, Latin, between seasons. Top 5s of our favorite things in history.
So I was talking to some girlfriends in the car and I was telling them about this. Like, I think we'll do top 5 most important rulers. And one of my friends was like, important or impotent? And I said, yes. We can do both. Strangest beauty regimens. Ugliest popes.
Ugliest popes. Most scandalous popes. There are a lot we can do with popes.
Oh, that one's easy. We can do a lot with the popes.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a good New Year.
However you choose to celebrate, be safe. Have fun, and make sure to sprinkle into the conversation some of the many interesting and scandalous historical facts that you have learned this year with the Pithy Chronicle. And we are learning right alongside with you.
Absolutely.
I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica.
And we are Pithily Yours.
This episode is brought to you by the Pithy Chronicle, LLC. The Pithy Chronicle is intended for education, entertainment, and non-commercial purposes. Any views or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. While we offer lots of sarcasm, this podcast does not offer any advice or services. Listening to this podcast may induce fits of laughter, unexpected distraction, or uncontrollable rage at the subjects, hopefully not at us. We hope you learned something today. If not, so sorry. Please be advised we are not experts in the following fields: medical, legal, financial, technological, thermonuclear engineering, submarine warfare, neuroscience, or cat husbandry. Thanks for listening to our little disclaimer. Just covering our history-loving asses. Bye!